part of police reform over the years were all these cameras, dash cameras, body cameras. And there is such a casualness to this aggression. And I did watch it because I think, people say it was too hard to watch or I couldn't watch it. And I thought that's the least we can do, to watch what is going, because I think people have to see it sometimes to maybe be, one, I think there's a lot of people that do realize this is never acceptable, not okay. I think the fact that it was black officers shows it doesn't matter the color of the cop, it's the victim.
It's the victim. It's the victim. Meanwhile, Whoopi Goldberg, she of the.
I will tie it back. When white people are brutally murdered by the police force, that is also a byproduct of white supremacy. Oftentimes we talk about how white supremacy kills white people as well. Okay, I'll tell you how. Because police are capital enforcers for capital, and because one of the biggest byproducts of that enforcement of the divisive politics that you need to engage in is the white supremacist justification for why you need incredible amounts of policing to begin with. That causes cops to be trained as an occupying force. And even when you're in a poor white neighborhood, because of all the justifications that you've gotten from prior white supremacist constructs of like, police have to be enforcers, police have to kill people, police are always in the right when they kill people, that you end up also behaving that way against poor white people especially. You do, and then you kill white people too, like Daniel Shaver in Arizona.
Genius sort of sage presence on The View. She's like, I'm not saying that maybe white people need to get beaten up for police reform to happen, but maybe white people need to get beaten up for police reform to happen. Okay, so first of all, this is unbelievably stupid. We've seen many, many cases of police brutality against white people. In fact, some of those cases are significantly worse than what we saw with Tyree Nichols.
The capos of the camps in World War II were not anti-Semitic because they were Jews. Won't hear these motherfuckers take their argument to logical ends? Of course not. That is, and they would say that that's an anti-Semitic thing to say.
That one case that I mentioned the other day of a white man killed by the police in a hotel is the Daniel Shaver killing of 2016.
Interesting. It's one of the few instances where Ben Shapiro is talking about Daniel Shaver. Well, I didn't even know he was going to talk about it, but because it's always on the top of my mind as a particularly brutal instance of police brutality and police violence, I can maybe explain it a little bit further, even though I just predicted that he was going to say it, I guess, and openly mentioned it. The reason why that piece of cop got away with executing Daniel Shaver in broad daylight, brutally, after making him comply to his list of demands and then still murdering him regardless. The reason why he was able to get away with it, and the reason why Mesa Police Department actually still pays him PTSD damages. That's right. He's still on the government dime. He's getting paid for the PTSD that the cop who killed Daniel Shaver, the guy who killed Daniel Shaver, still gets paid. Is that number accurate? I thought it was like around $3,000 a month by the Mesa Police Department because he filed for damages saying he experiences PTSD from murdering a pleading man, which he was, of course, not found guilty of. Remember that. Of course, Black Lives Matter protested that unjustifiable execution. They were there. Ben wasn't there, but they were. Black Lives Matter were there because they understand that a police department that will engage in this extrajudicial killing of a white person will certainly never think twice about killing a black person. Duh. That's kind of the whole point here. Okay. But to help you understand it, the reason why he was able to get away with it is because police are seen as brutal enforcers. Oftentimes, the justification for that brutal enforcement is because they're brutally enforcing bad people. Substitute bad with black, and you'll understand exactly what justification cops have to behave the way that they do, which then ends up oftentimes killing white people as well. That's it. That's how cops also, that's how white people are sometimes victims of white supremacy in the hands of the police. There are many other ways, of course, that white supremacy harms white people as well. But a lot of them revolve around the animosity and the fear that is baked into your existence from the jump. White people are terrified of black people in many cases. I'm using like a broad paintbrush here. I'm not saying all white people are terrified of all black people, but like there is this white resentment, white animosity, white fear towards specifically black men. And that animosity, that fear is social conditioning, okay? And that social conditioning and that very real fear, right? The white flight to the suburbs, the fact that Donald Trump can so easily pinpoint that and say, oh, they're coming to your neighborhoods. They're going to come into your neighborhoods. They mean black people are going to come into your neighborhoods. Like literally rerunning the same old 1960s era racism. And Biden as well. the reason why that is such a prescient and such a powerful motivator is because people are conditioned into thinking and believing that from the jump. Every aspect of our society is designed this way. Our education is designed this way. Okay, it reinforces that narrative. And that's a very powerful motivator for people. They're like, oh man, I am terrified of this. That's why we need to fund the cops instead of funding the social programs. That's why we need to fund the cops instead of funding the education system in underprivileged neighborhoods. That's why we need to separate through, invisible ways of redlining through the financial system, through the private sector, where black people live and white people live. That's why we need to stay away from black people. And that only reinforces that animosity as you are otherizing a group of individuals that you rarely ever contact, that you rarely ever see as human beings. And then you end up only seeing black people in television and media, and the way that they portray black people in television and media is oftentimes, again, reinforcing those stereotypes, violent predators, right? And when you are a captive audience to that kind of propaganda, they can justify anything. And don't listen to me say this. Listen to Lee Atwater, who openly has talked about this very famously. Lee Atwater was a consultant for, I believe, Nixon as well as Reagan. Harvey Leroy Lee Atwater is an American political consultant and strategist for the Republican Party, and he was an advisor to the U.S. Presidents Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush, and the chairman of the National Republican Committee, the Republican National Committee. Now, I'm going to show a very famous video of his that you have seen time and time again, but I believe it always bears repeating. There's a trigger warning. A lot of N-words in this one, okay? A lot of N-word being dropped in the video. I'm just letting you know. Hold on. With a hard R. Oh, here it is. This is Lee Atwater's famous, infamous 1981 interview on the Southern Strategy. Now, buckle up for this during Black History Month, first day of Black History Month. Just, I think I probably play this on the first day of Black History Month every year at this point. Every year that I've been streaming, this is a video that I play because every year there's another black victim of police brutality or some other, reason why I have to play this to show people that this is how easy it is to motivate particularly white people and how they can become, victims of white supremacy in this way. Nice Bathroom says, all we asked was for do-rag streams. This is what we got instead. This is in the 1981, the legendary brutal campaign consultant Lee Atwater was working in Ronald Reagan's White House when he was interviewed by Alexander Lemis. In this audio, made public for the first time ever, Atwater lays out how Republicans can win the vote of racists without sounding racist themselves.
Here's how I would approach that issue as a statistician or a political scientist, or no, as a psychologist, which I'm not, is how abstract you handle the race thing. In other words, you start out, and now y'all aren't quoting me on this. You start out in 1954 by saying, by 1968, you can't say that hurts you.
That's a big bummer. You can't say it. That hurts you. People think you're racist when you say it in 1968.
Backfire, so you say stuff like forced busing, states' rights, and all that stuff.
Fun things that Joe Biden was on board with, by the way. You say forced busing, states' rights, you say all that stuff. States' rights also famously another way to uphold and justify the Confederacy. Remember, same arguments. Nothing has changed.
And you're getting so abstract now, you're talking about cutting taxes and all of these things you're talking about are totally economic things, and the byproduct of them is blacks get hurt worse than whites. And subconsciously, maybe...
Welfare queen. Remember, welfare queen. A byproduct of the welfare queen mentality was the welfare reform that came during the Bill Clinton era. Okay? The concept of a welfare queen is supposed to be racialized. It's a racial concept. Even though there are more white people in poverty than there are black people in poverty. Why? Because there are more white people in this country. Who are the people who think this level of austerity on a social safety net, on a benefit that they need is actually good? Racist, poor people. That's who. That is how white people undermine their own material conditions. They think they're advocating against black people. Meanwhile, they do not realize that they're advocating against themselves as well. That is how white supremacy ends up duping white people and harming white people too.
That is part of it. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that if it is getting that abstract and that coded, that we're doing away with the racial problem one way or the other. You follow me? Because obviously sitting around saying we want to cut taxes, we want to cut this, and we want is much more abstract than even the busing thing, and a hell of a lot more abstract than, you know. So
Also, I mean, there's another one. If you can convince the lowest white man he's better than the best colored man, he won't notice you're picking his pocket. Hell, give him something to look down on, and he'll empty his pockets for you. Famous L Big Dick J quote as well. There are so many instances of this where people just like openly mention it. Yes, LBJ did have a gigantic penis. Anyway, that's unrelated to the conversation. Okay. Here's the thing. This is like very openly discussed. You won't see it in history books. You won't see it in your textbooks. And as a matter of fact, Republicans now deny this. They deny that the Southern strategy ever happened. As the chatter correctly pointed out, they apologize for it. There was a time when the Republicans were trying to clean up their image and say we're a reform party. We're not like the old school Republicans, where they openly apologize for it. Hold on, let me see. That apology is an admission for why it happened, by the way. Yeah, here it is. Mike Allen, the RNC chief, said that it was wrong to exploit racial conflict for votes. This is a Washington Post article from 2005. It was called the Southern Strategy. Started under Richard Nixon and described Republican efforts to use race as a wedge issue on matters such as desegregation and busing to appeal to white Southern voters. They openly fucking apologize for it. Now, Ben Shapiro acts like it's not real. It's not a thing. This is CRT, ladies and gentlemen. I'm giving you CRT, okay? Healthy dose of it. So remember this. This is how white supremacy ends up hurting white people too.